moment. Like he just joined. He walked in the room.
No,
just
that
now.
sucks. That sucks.
Weird.
That's
hey, Mike!
Hey, Mike's here.
Wow! Hey!
Oh my! Wow! Thanks.
Oh, hey, I was just hanging out in Terry's house.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we got to do like a door opening. Oh, Mike's here! Hey, everybody, clap!
Yay! And he's here for Hivescum,
Yeah.
the podcast for the 28 community. I'm your host, Gage at No Clear Coat.
And I'm Terry at Stoked.jaw.
I'm Steve at South of Heaven.
And who are you?
Yeah, who are you?
Yeah, who are you?
My name's Mike Hutchinson, but I designed games.
Well, we're good to have you.
It's kind of crazy.
Let's go! Yeah, it's a good 9:44 a.m., so not really crackable hour here. But
I mean, I could go crack one right now.
yeah.
Bring me that Miller 64. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you had that crack. You really did us justice there. Steve ran to go grab some crackables.
Here you go. What do you got? You got some CZ, dude?
Oh, dude,
hell yeah.
nice, man. Heck yeah.
Yeah, get it in there. Oh my goodness. There. No pop filter there.
Yeah, it's a party.
Do you want this Coke Zero?
I'll take a little sip. Mike, how the hell are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on top of the world, actually. I'm sitting in the middle of a Kickstarter that's going well. I am living the dream, my friends.
Yeah, thank you again. You sent us a box that you are currently propped up on. The laptop that is holding you right now is full of what appears to be 5,000 copies of the Quick Start Space Gits rules.
Complete with typos that I caught after the print run, but that's the way of it.
I was going to say, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were talking about, because we did our little Patreon episode before this, we were talking, you can play a whole game with these quick start rules, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing the only things that are really missing are all of the options that you might want when you're kit bashing and building a gang, and the vehicle rules and the campaign system.
Yeah.
But all the core rules fit on that little pamphlet.
That's
I love
sweet.
that.
Yeah. I got a chance to play at Adepticon with our friend Tyler, and it was completely mind-blowing. I had no idea what it was going into it, and $1 Billion Clown Farm Tyler, he was like, okay, and then he immediately starts with dropping the bottle caps, and I was like, all right, I'm in, here we go, I'm ready for this game. And it was a blast to play.
Yeah, I heard your rant on the last podcast, and oh my god, it was it's so pleasurable to hear how much that you got from it, and what I make weird games mostly, and when people connect with them and see what's weird about them but enjoy that, it just gives me so much back. So yeah, thanks, dude.
I think when we were kind of putting this idea together of getting you on and what we would talk to you about, we all kind of had the same question. It's where do you start with your design process for such a weird out of the box game? Do you, for Space Gits, are you I want to throw bottle caps at my friends on the table and then play rock, paper, scissors? Is that what you start with, or is it...
I want orc game.
Yeah. I want drunk orcs.
So there isn't a single answer to this, because number one, it depends game by game. And number two, I think if I have a secret, it's that I write a crap ton of games and most of them just end up on the cutting room floor.
We have a lot that you sent as well here.
I sent a crap ton of games to you. Yeah, and those are the ones that aren't on the cutting room floor. So Space Gits specifically, where that started is I mentioned it to Gage. I don't know if you guys also know about it, but I'm now a published author of a textbook as a result of the Rule of Carnage podcast that I do about games design. Mm-hmm. Someone approached us from CRC Press and said, hey, we publish a lot of game design textbooks on video games, but we're doing more tabletop games. Do you want to pitch us a tabletop game design book? And we were like, yeah, okay, sure. We're not academics, but sure, we'll have a go. Fast forward a couple of years, and we're writing there's a chapter in the middle about dice and dice mechanics and what you can do with dice. And when you're thinking about designing a game, how many dice do you use and what shape of the dice and all that good stuff. And we got to the end of that chapter where we start getting a little bit weirder and hazier. And we were writing a bit about how what other things can you consider with dice? Like, dice are square, they can stack, they have a physical presence in the universe. Like, does that ever get used? And so we're writing this bit where you could sort of, hey, you could use the physical location of dice in the play area in relationship to the miniatures to do something with. And I sort of, we wrote that bit, and then I went away and woke up the next morning going, hang on a minute, I want to take that piece of advice. I want to write a game where the place that the dice lands matters, because I don't think I can think of a single game that's ever done that. So that was the genesis, that little mechanical spark. In this case, with Space Gits, was a little mechanical idea. I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. Like, maybe you throw the dice and maybe you move. Maybe that's how you move. Okay, so maybe you move towards the dice a number of inches equal to what the dice has been rolled. Okay, that sounds kind of fun, but also kind of insane. I wonder what theme would drunk orcs. Yep, okay, that will fit. And from there, it just kind of blossomed out quite quickly into a prototype like last summer. And with all of these things, like, I just threw together a prototype as fast as I could, because I'm kind of easily distractible and I like to get things done before the energy and the headlights point somewhere else. So I sort of spammed something out quick down on paper, but because it was starting with this dice throwing idea, I was like, okay, well, let's call this a dice dexterity game, and then let's lean into that and see where else I can go. And so I just started... messing around with other dice dexterity things. I don't know where the dice stacking for wounds and activations came from, but that was the other, like, once I had, you stack a dice every time you activate and also as damage, and then you have to move around towards these random dice without knocking the tower over. I was like, okay, this is so delightful. Do you know what, actually, though? There's a second answer to this question, which is a friend of mine about a year ago unearthed a set of like 80s Rogue Trader Orc Raider miniatures, like the big heavy single piece metal ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I was painting, and he was like, I've had these in my loft for like 40 years. I'm never going to do anything with them, but they are treasures that should go to someone who will appreciate them. So he gifted them to me and I painted them up. And as with many things, like, once I painted them up, I'm like, okay, I wonder what game I should play with these. And I was looking at different skirmish games and thinking, I wonder what. And so I guess, like, wanting to play a game with these single piece Rogue Trader orcs was also maybe why I leapt to Space Orcs as the theme once I had the little dexterity mechanic. So yeah, like, a confluence of two little, a hobby thing and a mechanical idea. That's probably pretty standard, that intersection for me.
So now you have, and you said you put down all the rules that, like, you can possibly come up with as soon as possible, so you don't, like, I don't know, like, get distracted, like you said, by other things.
Right.
Do you have that idea sort of written down and built, and then do you add things to it as they pop into your head? Like, I'm thinking about the rock, paper, scissors mechanic for combat. Like, did that come after the fact? Or was that part of the wackiness and you're like, oh, that would be cool?
Yeah, I think it was part of the, like, throwing ideas out, but it didn't start as rock, paper, scissors specifically. It started as, do you guys play that board game Skull, where you have, like, beer mats and you have to flip them over and bet different beer mats? Okay, so it's called Skull or Skull and Roses. It's an awesome game because it, like, you can play it with, like, 4 people or 10 people, and it works really well down the pub. That one has this, like, as soon as you start playing that game with friends, you all start, like, super, like, bravado bluffing and, like, yelling at each other, and, like, it's just got a real kind of macho bluffing nonsense that, like, it isn't necessarily directly in the rules of the game. It just is emergent from the way that the game is so, like, bluff heavy. So I wanted the fighting system to be a kind of macho bluffing game, and I didn't know exactly what the mechanics for it would be, but I knew what it should feel like. And so I tried a bunch of different things, and rock, paper, scissors felt like the sort of the most physical and immediate, because, like, everything about this game, it's not like, consult a chart, roll 2 dice. It's all a bit more physical and immediate than that. And so the thumping was just kind of, like, we can sort of like physically gesture at each other. Right.
Well, that was the thing, is when I was playing Tyler, I always thumped. I was like, I'm an orc. I'm always going to thumb. And he was explaining like all the nuances of like, oh, you can pitch, you can shove, you can do all this. And I was just like, no, I'm always going to fight.
You're like, yeah, nuance my ass.
Yeah. And so that's a great way to put it.
And so like that mechanic, the fighting mechanic's a good example of somewhere where like the first thing I wrote isn't that final system that's there, and that one went through like a bunch of different iterations because I just couldn't quite get it right. So even a lot of the things in the basic rules on that quick start guide like went through a number of really quick rapid iterations. Actually, do you know what? I said I released it like initially last summer. The thing that I did to release it was put a little rule book together, and I recorded a how to play video. That how to play video took me like 3.5 days to record because I kept explaining the rules and then being dissatisfied with them, rewriting the rules and then re-recording the video.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool way to do it.
Yeah, because it was like partly playtesting with myself, but also like I had to sort of explain it in a way that made kind of the narrative of the game made sense. And so, yeah, I was just like constantly revising it whilst making it.
I feel like that puts your brain in a different mindset where you're actually, because you're saying it out loud, you're actually playtesting it a bit differently than you would of just like writing it down and playing it. So that might be the new secret way to write games, is to make a how-to play video only for yourself.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. That's probably a very good idea.
I mean, it's like people talking out loud when they're doing stuff, It's like, oh, what's that guy doing in the corner? Oh, he's crazy, he's just talking to himself. But it's like, no, he's probably the most dialed in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That like, just to jump on that part, since I started doing like regular YouTube videos of me designing games, because I thought that would be a fun insight for folks, I end up doing quite a lot of design work where I've got the camera turned on and I have to be talking out loud and explaining what's going on and explaining what my decision making is. And it's exactly that. It's like, okay, so now I'm in this like weird new space where I'm narrating the actual functioning of my brain as it happens. And that is like it's a weird sort of new way of like, I'm not just sitting there scratching my head and writing something in my notebook. I've got to explain what's going on.
Yeah,
I'm going to
pressure's
show
on.
my working as I go.
So do you find that more helpful than just like writing things down?
It's different. It's useful in a different way. I think it's sometimes good, sometimes not. Like with in the big crunch towards getting a proper draft of Space Gits done before the Kickstarter, I tried to record a bunch of like, oh, it'd be nice to launch the Kickstarter and then have like videos of me designing the final sections of Space Gits. But like, I was just like the videos of me just like silently like twiddling a pencil for like 45 minutes whilst things are going on in my brain, but they're like, so no, not all the
time. So Space Gits, I mean, like there's so much baked into this game that's new and unique, and like you just said, feels so fresh and feels so interesting. But do you think there's a common thread through your games that you bake in everywhere besides just your personality?
Thanks for saying that about my personality. I'm feeling more confident this year than I ever have about like having a voice as an artist. Before, I've just been like, I've been hiding that and feeling like I was just sort of grubbing around. I think the thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create systems games that are like, I kind of think of them like maybe songs or albums or maybe short stories. They're designed to do a thing and to evoke a mood or a moment or like a kind of experience. They aren't like intended as general purpose engines for every kind of thing. So like one of the problems I've got with like a big game like 40K is that 40K necessarily from its business model has to be like a lot of things to a lot of people, and so it's not one thing and it doesn't get to zoom in on that. And I bet if you're one of the developers of 40K, it's kind of frustrating. But like indie games, you can pick a thing and you can like, just like with a short story, you can like concentrate on a character or concentrate on a mood or concentrate on a thing. I want to write each of my games in a way that's like, okay, this is another Mike Hutchinson game, but it's like another album from Mike Hutchinson. Like you'll probably like it, but it's going to be different and you're not guaranteed to like it, but at least it's going to be its own self-contained thing.
I mean, that's
what I would hope is true.
I think that it is, and it's funny that you say albums because there's like there's musical artists and bands that like don't understand that either, and they just continue to put out the same thing over and over again, and nothing feels fresh, and then people get tired of them, and it's always the artists that are trying to reinvent themselves every time, or just like putting a slight twist, and then something deeper comes through in the work, like sort of a philosophy instead when they're making a game, or an aesthetic, I guess, in a way, but it's deeper than that.
I think going back to your point about having hyper-specific like moments in these indie games, and what is kind of like putting the magnifying glass on this hyper-specific moment. When we did our Brothers of Prometheum event, we hacked Gaslands for the second mission. And Terry called it Fastlands, and we were like, how can we make Gaslands a 20+ person game where
everyone can understand it without even thinking of a rule,
right? And it won't punish everyone that's player 20 isn't waiting this whole time. And we hacked it to the point where it was just you grab a template, you have to use it. It doesn't matter what your speed or anything is. We're not even caring about that. If you run into anything, you die. We put like a weight class on things, and if it was heavy, you could run into 2 things.
Yeah. If you were small, you could use the super fast template. That was literally a fucking yardstick.
Yeah, we made like two of the max gear templates. So it was like just to get that specific moment across, because we were using OPR as kind of like the base for most of that event we did. Mm-hmm. But that Fastlands was the highlight for everyone. It was
a big thematic thing, 28mm scale ships racing across a 12-foot table,
and it's like you can't make OPR go to everything. Like you said, 40K can't cover everything. We had to take a very hyper specific game, and I think that's the beauty of indie games, is being able to put them in these hyper specific points, these moments.
Yeah,
I love what you've said with that you did with Gaslands there, because you've sort of plucked like maybe the template idea as like, that's the fun thing that I want to share with everyone, and as long as we've got that like central mechanic, the rest of it is kind of like the activation system or the dice rolling or whatever, like all of that is kind of optional to like what the actual hook of the game is, which is like plugging shapes down on the table, like you're kind of like a toddler with a shape puzzle.
Yeah,
it's just like there's an immediate tactile like pleasure in it.
Right.
Yeah. That kind of goes back to what we were saying in the Patreon episode about like RPGs, bringing them down to the lowest common denominator, and just we're not playing with any of these rules, but I can pluck that specific rule out, so we do play with it.
Yeah,
you don't need to use everything else.
I don't need this 500-page tome of this other game. I'm going to play the game I want with the cool mechanic from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's like a mechanic in most of the games that you make that kind of is the central focus of the game?
Probably, but it's not always obvious when I'm writing the game what it is. Like I was chatting on the Rule of Carnage podcast on a episode that probably will come out in a week or two now, but like we were talking about how pitching your game at conventions can be really tricky, but also is really important, and like finding that elevator pitch. And quite often, like it's after I've designed the game and it's in print that I kind of figure out what the pitch is, and then I wish that I'd known that so that I could go back and like emphasize or de-emphasize certain things that maybe support or don't support that. So like I think with Space Gits I was lucky, or it was just like it was very on the surface. Like I knew that it was a dexterity-based skirmish game, and that was going to be the first thing out of my mouth whenever like someone walked past the booth that I was trying to catch their eye. And so I was able to build everything to like support that central mechanical idea. But I think sometimes it's a vibe that is. I'm actually not sure. I'd like to get better at vibes in my game. Like I think Gaslands has got one. Hobgoblin had one introduced by Greg at Electi, and Space Gits for sure has one. But I'd like to get more like, because like RPGs are a good example of where a lot of indie RPGs are very vibe driven, and the mechanics kind of don't matter as long as you get the vibe. And I think that there's to a degree a bit of that in miniatures, like indie miniature skirmish games as well, where if a vibe is strong, the rules don't matter a whole bunch because you're already getting people across the threshold with that like whether it's a sweet cover or a really interesting idea for like how to build miniatures. And so I'd like to be more like thoughtful about that, so that if there is a central mechanical idea in each of the games, it's like 100% linked to like whatever that vibe that I'm throwing out that's going to catch people's attention initially. And I think that might be like, I think that's why something like Gaslands and Space Gits ring loudly when I put them in front of people. And it's why like other prototypes like mine, like I've got this skirmish, I've got this kind of warband sized fantasy game called Rotvalden, and I haven't been able to pitch it. And it's because it doesn't really have a vibe. It doesn't really have it's got a front cover that doesn't yet have a sweet piece of artwork. I don't have any miniature pictures in it. Like, I'm not telling you what kind of a like vibe you should be feeling whilst you build and play this game. And so that's why I'm struggling to pitch that game, I think, is because I just need to like rename it Abyssal Gods, and it needs to be about like cults of dudes like summoning their minions in and then like smashing 6 spells out of each other in a place that's like really well rendered with a nice front cover and stuff. And then people will probably stop and go, "Oh, what the hell is this? The Abyssal Gods skirmish game."
Right. I think a lot of to 2 points of what you just said, a lot of it that we got at Adepticon is people would come to the booth, and Matt had this beautiful Smash Bash banner, and we had all of our shirts up, and it looked like a merch booth at like a show or something, and it instantly got that across where people were like, okay, I'm safe at this booth. Now what can I buy? And that's what I was talking to you. I said, every time I see pictures about Salute, all these booths are just gray and black, and I was like, wow, Mike, your booth has color. That's really cool. But when Steve was making Flames, I think, I don't know, I've worked 4 conventions with you at this point, where people are coming up to the booth and they're like, so tell me about Flames. And it's like you said, finding that hook. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It's Max.
I don't even know how to.
Yeah.
You ask me about my game and how to play it. It's like, I'll play it with you. I don't know how to like.
It's cool, Max. Just play it. And yeah, it's hard to get that across when you're, like you said, it's like our buddy, Dave Hoskins says all the time. It's like looking at the cover is kind of like one of the most important things, where you're then going through it and going, okay, I get the vibe of this game. Now let me dig deeper.
I mean, that's why I put so much like mental space into that new cover with like the Akira rip.
Right.
Like, it sells you the theme of what you're about to open into.
Right. And I think you were really good about it with Flames with Nico's art.
Yeah.
Like from the start, where it was like, I'm getting this vibe across, and this is what I want it to be. Yes. And at first, I didn't understand why it was so important. And then now, as I'm like really digging through the book and getting it, it's like, no, this is the most important part. So shout out Nico for that, especially. He's the best.
And then I think the other half of the equation is, once you've set up that vibe and set that expectation, like, do you actually end up delivering a game that is like both interesting but like mechanically connected to that vibe?
Right.
Because there's a billion tedious skirmish games out there, and then there's a small section of them which are got really cool vibes on the surface, but then when you get down to it, it's just like, well, this is just another like move 4 inches, roll some dice to hit and wound kind of a situation, which there doesn't really need to be any more of, even if the vibe is really cool. So I would love to see more people coming up with a vibe and then getting a bit riskier with the mechanics, in a way that connects directly to that theme.
Right.
There needs to be like more like reskins, or not even reskins, like, here's the vibe pamphlet that play your game.
Just making 40K cool by just changing it.
Just changing what they're looking at. But like, go use your 40K rules, but when you're doing it, do this.
Now, talking aesthetics and talking vibe, so let's take Rotvarden for an example. Do you think that a vibe will just sort of like come to you, like you'll be walking through the street or something, and you'll just be kind of like daydreaming? And will the vibe for that project come from that, or do you find yourself like sitting down and actively having to like, make a Pinterest board and like, or like sitting down and being like, let me have my sketchbook out and start writing down ideas and then coming up with it that way?
I think one of the reasons that I have so many in-flight design ideas is that I never know what exactly is going to happen. Like, it might just be like, I see a scene in a movie and I'm like, oh, that ignites something for me. Or it might just be like, I'm just working on some minis for like a specific game or a different game or no game at all, and I'm like starting to get a vibe. Or like, so I'm kind of obsessed with building fantasy armies. I don't know why, I barely ever finish them, but like I've got a bunch of Bestarium Minotaurs like printed out, and I'm basically
That's because those sculpts are very cool.
Yeah. I got one of them off of like a website that was selling HeroQuest terrain like 3 years ago, and it lived rent free in my brain. And I was like, no, I need to get the rest of this guy's friends. So it will be any number of things, whether it's like consuming media or an idea just occurs to me in the shower, and then I want to chase that down, or like sometimes it is sitting there and sort of specifically thinking, okay, I've really got to, like recently. So I've got a second edition of A Billion Suns brewing, which I need to turn into Offspray quite soon, and it'll be coming out next year. But I was working with this other miniature games company, and they'd like asked me to come in for a couple days of like game design consultancy. And so I was giving them some help about like what it was about their fantasy skirmish game that I thought was kind of generic and uninviting. And I described how like their setting was kind of inert. It didn't have like a central conflict in it, and it wasn't clear like who the sides are and how I should relate to each of those sides, so that I can kind of take a spiritual place on one side or the other. And the more I was explaining these problems that I felt were in their setting, I was sort of making notes on the side to myself going, yeah, Billion Suns has all of these problems, actually. I need to really fix this. So like with the Billion Sun second edition, I'm very actively like, I'm not just sort of wandering around waiting for inspirations to strike. I'm like very actively thinking about like, okay, where do I want to take the setting? What kind of like conflicts and factions and stuff do I want happening in this world to actually bring it to life, so that when people get it to the table, they're like, oh yeah, I want to be, the space crabs, or I want to be the, religious faction or whatever. So they've got something to like grab hold of.
Now, not to derail this too much, but you got a favorite movie? What's your favorite movie? Or a top fiver?
Oh, top five always.
Yeah, top
Favorite
five or something in there.
It often comes up because it's actually behind me. Maybe you haven't been able to see it because
well, yeah.
So that's the 70s That's the 70s Nosferatu poster behind me. I'm a big fan of Werner Herzog's movies.
How'd you feel
Nosferatu particularly?
How'd you feel about the new one?
Haven't seen it yet. I got two little girls, so we don't get to the cinema too much.
Yeah. I don't think that's a two little girl movie anyway.
No.
Yeah.
Do you think that there was
like the most recent movie I watched was like I've seen the Super Mario movie because
that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, compared to the 90s one. Yeah.
Ugh.
Do you think that Space Gits got some of the kind of like little kid energy from your family?
That's probably true. I mean, I think a lot of that little kid energy comes from me just still being a little kid. So hopefully my little girls get a lot of that energy as well. But yeah, like a bunch of the playtesting was done with my 5-year-old daughter, who was 5 at the time. So yeah, there's definitely a vibe where I suppose like more generally, more philosophically, I'm like looking at the range of miniature games out there and saying this is kind of monoculture-y in a way that board games aren't. And wouldn't it be nice if there was a broader spread of like ways to play with little toy soldiers that weren't toy soldiers necessarily and weren't always the same kind of format of game. So yeah, like it's a war game, but like my daughters and I have been playing Necromolds, which is like just a studied and wonderful like off the wall miniature game design. I mean, it's still like a skirmish battle game, but that's fine. Like they play HeroQuest, they understand, rolling some wound dice or whatever.
They sold out way too fast.
That's such a 90s game. It's so insane. It's so cool. Their advertising, everything they did for that game was perfect.
And that's a game that nailed the vibe and the mechanics.
Yes.
And the product, like the physical objects you get, like they absolutely nailed it. Like every little detail, like the way that there are these tiny little air holes so that when you close the little spell book with the Play-Doh in it, like it just works. It's so good. It's a labor of love.
Now, this is a dad question. What age do you think that your daughters really took to games?
Is this for any reason, Terry?
This is just literally for me. I have my daughter is like a little over 1 year old now, and I keep being like, man, when can I start playing games with her?
So my wife and I fondly remember this moment when my eldest daughter was 2, and she was playing with Duplo trains. And she brought my wife Vanessa over and said to her, I would like to play a game with you. Now, listen carefully, it's quite complicated. And she was like, Mike, what have you done to this child?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. I think three or four is when the girls started to like get interested in games in a sort of general way. But like my 5-year-old is able to like really comfortably play quite sensibly, not grown-up games, but like she plays, proper games that we can play together. Like she likes things with monsters and stuff, and so we've been playing like there's a card game called Living Forest, which is like not actually the like most simple card game in the world, certainly not intended for kids, and my 5-year-old can easily play that. So I'm sure your kid is bright and will be gaming by 5, no problem.
All right, I'll stop with the, that's like a very specific question to me. A selfish question, but I had to throw it out there.
Yeah, no, I get it though, because like I started painting my like miniatures in front of the kids super early, and they like, I found like a Tumblr post that I'd made from like 5 years ago, where it's like, my 2-year-old like painted this termagant, and she like held the model and the paintbrush herself. And so like, it's not that I was indoctrinating them. It's so much as just like, this is a fun thing that I do. Let's share some time together.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely.
Where do you think it started for you? Like, where was your, as a child, were you immediately born with this brain of yours, or were you indoctrinated?
My dad played a lot of board games. He had a board game collection that was unusually large for when I was a kid. And so I think it was that, plus like Hero Quest. Like people of my generation are scarred forever by that game, so I still have my little Hero Quest set.
I can see it on your shelf.
Yeah.
That's the new one, but I still have my rickety old one. And then I actually was pulling this down because I was working on some Metal Orcs earlier. This is not my original copy, but there was a copy of Warhammer Fantasy Battle 3rd edition, a beaten up, falling apart hardback edition in our school library for some reason. Like some kid had obviously, or maybe some teacher had like imported it into the library. So a couple of us discovered that in like our first year at that school when we were like 10 or something, and we were like, oh wow, this is like Hero Quest, but like everything's crazy and insane and beautifully rendered. And so we never played 3rd edition, but like when the High Elves and the Goblins came out with 4th edition, I think we were getting into it then, or my friend John helped get me into it then. So yeah, it was a pretty slippery slope from my dad enjoying playing board games with his kids to discovering Warhammer in a beaten up copy, like some kind of forbidden tome.
Were you playing by the book with a lot of those games, or were you the type of player that's like, oh, this rule sucks, let's change it?
My friend John fondly remembers us buying the Necromunda box set, me reading the rule, this is like on launch week or whatever, me reading the rules and going, pinning? This rule seems ridiculous. We're never playing with that. And then we played Necromunda for like 2 years and never played the pinning rule.
That rocks. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Pinning rule sucks.
I think we may have missed something, but anyway, I'm not sure we ever played the games correctly as kids. Like, we never had enough models. We never really knew what we were doing. We were just digging the vibe and just, yeah.
Just rolling dice.
I spent so much more time building terrain and like scavenging trash off the streets on my way to and from school than I probably ever did actually playing the games correctly. But then also like there were so many games coming out that from Games Workshop specifically at that time that like we'd get a lot of crumbs in White Dwarf of like, read a bunch of like expansion articles for Manowar, but I didn't own Manowar, but I kind of like had a strong sense of what Manowar might be like, and so then like made up my own sort of spaceship game that was like combining my like half remembered one game of Space Fleet with my half remembered one game of Manowar, and like, oh, I've got graph paper and endless summers, I'll just make my own Space Fleet game.
Yeah.
So it began the game design began super early for that reason.
Or like I feel like as a kid, you got the vision. It's so funny. It's like you lose that at a certain point, become like way too like analytical about things. Then you're like, well, everything needs to have a place.
Everything needs a rule.
Yeah, as a kid, you just want to see things happen, and it happens all in your head more than it happens on like an Excel spreadsheet. But then when we get older, it's just everything goes to like Excel spreadsheetville.
Yeah,
I think one thing that I do a lot. And it helps, like with the channel videoing myself. Like when I'm starting a game idea, I'll immediately put toys on the table and I'll start pushing those toys around and like feeling what the toys should feel like. And like I don't want to say I'm not an analytical person, but like I don't create miniature games by imagining what they will be like in the abstract. I have to sit there with toys and sort of measure things and go like, yeah, this feels about the right distance apart, and these guys are going to do something that's kind of like this. And if I haven't got the right toys in front of me, then the game doesn't really happen. So I collect a lot of miniatures anyway, but like I collect a lot of miniatures specifically because like I've got a game idea and I want to put it on the table, and I'm not going to proxy it. Like it has to be the right feeling because the toys are going to be right. Otherwise the whole thing falls to pieces. It isn't even real. Now, don't interpret that as saying I have to have painted models. I'm a terrible person for playing with unpainted models because I've got too many models and too much ADD to finish any one thing.
Steve is biting his tongue right now.
I'm not biting it. Paint your shit.
It's funny, though, that you mentioned back when you were talking about, you think of your games more as like writing short stories and having a particular vibe, because like I feel like the same thing happens in storytelling that you're kind of talking about with game design, where it's like you can write a story and it can feel really stiff, but it can make sense. But if you have like a more like if you're able to better understand what the characters are doing in the story is going to be much more relatable to the people. So if I can understand like why an orc is going to act a particular way, like that game is going to be much more understandable to me being the player. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that like the thing that's fun and unique about games is that you put agency and decision making into players' hands. And what I think is hard to grasp initially when you're designing games is that the specific decisions and the specific choices and agency that you put in the players' hands like totally determines where their mental eyeball is focused and therefore what the game is about. So you can say with your vibe and your cover artwork, hey, the game is about XYZ, but if all your mechanics are about something different, then that's not what the game is about, because the mechanics are what is drawing people's focus during the play experience. And so I find myself kind of trying to sit outside of myself going like, what's the feeling I want to be feeling whilst playing the game? And there is where the mechanics should sit. Whatever that feeling is, the mechanics have to sit around and kind of evoke that.
And ultimately, do you think that that's what you want players to take away from it? Like an experience playing one of your games is more so about them feeling like they exist in this world that you're building?
Yeah, not quite as like on the nose as that, but just like, I don't know, there's just like, you want a fantasy to exist around them, but that fantasy doesn't necessarily have to be like a direct inhabiting fantasy. It can just be that like
yeah, okay.
When you read a really good story, you come away with a really strong kind of feeling inside you. It's not the feeling that you were actually like on that castle rampart fighting that fight, but like it's a warm feeling that like you just experienced something really that connected with you, and that like, it activated primal fantasy like nodules in your brain in a really pleasurable but non-direct way, in the kind of way that like music activates emotional nodules without being specific about it. I think the same can be true of all mediums of games. Like it can tickle bits of your brain without necessarily having to be super direct about it. And so that's what I'm looking for. Like on the surface, because of the kind of games that we play, like they're about the fun banter that you had at the table with your friend across the table. But underneath, there was some kind of musical sensation that was like, yeah, and we really did feel like we smashed mechs together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a great answer.
Yeah, I personally, I'm a player that likes campaign play and narrative play more than anything. And I think I gravitate to those games where campaign play is built into the game. Like Flames has it, where it's like, okay, going from one game to the next, make sure you're tracking this information. Acropolis has it very well. So yeah, I could totally see that what is it, the serotonin response that you're getting from these things, from the underlying part of the brain.
I mean, like World of Warcraft, any of these games that have like a level progression.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, pretty much.
More time. That's why we all zoomed in on more time, because I'm like, oh, this has leveling up. I keep all my stuff across stuff. Guys die, they're gone forever. This is awesome.
Get the game out of the way so I can roll on the end game chart. I don't even care about playing it.
Can we just roll off, see what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's like there's a loop that you enjoy, and different people get different things out of this. But like that whole like imagining that you're going to play the game, then like mentally writing a list or figuring out how the game works, then physically gathering the materials, preparing them, converting them, painting them, then getting to the table, having that awesome experience, and then thinking about everything after the game, like, could I have played it better? Like, do I want to change my list? Like, I want to add a new model to this. Like that loop, you get one of those, and in a campaign game, it provides a way for that loop to keep happening with the same stuff that you've built on top of. And so you get that pleasurable like hit of like, yes, I finished the whole hobby loop, and then you get a reason to go and do it again with your friends multiple times. And it's fun to play that one time round. And you guys are probably the same as me. Like there's a bunch of games that you'll have done that once for, and you had a cool like evening's entertainment, playing that one random skirmish game that you played once. But if the campaign system hits home, I think the thing that it does is it kickstarts that hobby loop again and again and again.
Do you have an engineering background at all?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay,
I used to do product management for software was my gig.
I was picking up on that in that last bit there.
Yeah,
you're managing PID loops for entertainment right now. So
I've read Nia's Hooked book.
So where does your history come to start working with $1 Billion Tyler, our collective boyfriend here?
Oh man, yeah. I have such a crush on him.
He's the best.
He popped up in the comments section of one of my videos on YouTube. Was just like, hey, this is sick. I was like, wait, what the fuck? You know who I am? Right. You do commission painting. So I just emailed him like cold and was just like, hey, it appears you are watching at least one of my video. Can I pay you to do some like painting for Space Gits? Because I would like the models to look like I'm a solid 6 out of 10 when it comes to miniature painting. Like I can get all the miniatures in at least the first edition of Gaslands were painted by me, and all the miniatures in A Billion Suns are painted with me. It's fine. I'm fine. But I'm slow, and I wanted to be focusing on other things, and I wanted some art. And I'd been watching he painted a bunch of like grody, rusty, orange, sort of old hammer orc dudes in a Dope Smoker by Sleep album cover color scheme. And I was like, that is what I want my game to look like. It ended up not being that, because he was like, actually, I got better ideas. So I contacted him, and he was like super into the idea of doing the commission painting. But then the more I showed him the game, the more excited he got about the whole package. And he was like, hey, can I take the photographs? And I was like, well, I was going to take the photographs, but like, if you want to take the photographs. And then he sort of showed me the kind of stuff that he did. And then he let me know that he's like got a background in, visual, like fine art, and then, motion graphics. And I was like, shit, I landed on my feet with you, Tyler.
He's a very well-rounded person. He has a lot of talents.
Yeah, right. Like he's trying to finish the Space Gits models, the miniatures painting and photography right now, but he's also learning 2 separate metal sets for 2 different gigs.
Yes, one is ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, Godspeed. So that was intense, because what came back from Tyler was an energy that was like incredibly nourishing for the game. Like the game leapt forward as a result of his kind of enthusiasm for all this sort of shit that I was throwing out there. And he understood it, and he got it, and he was bouncing it back at me. And so I got a ton out of that. Like what was going to be a commission painting relationship turned into like a proper full-on creative partnership. And I'm super thankful for that.
It's like you said, though, it's like it's getting the vibe of a person to help convey that, where it's like we were saying, people coming up to the booth, we had probably 20 tattoo artists come up to the booth at Adepticon, and they're like, hey, if you guys ever want to do anything, I would love to be involved in this culture, this community. And we would just point them down to the Grimdark Alley and say, go talk to anyone down there. I'm sure you'll have a game coming out in a year with one of them. Like, it's just it's getting it across that way. So
Yeah, 100%.
Now, what type of music you listen to over there? You mentioned and music comes up in like every one of your games. Music comes up
way over there.
And you got the Zappa license plate in the back. You got you've mentioned Sleep Dope
Zappa
Smoker
license plate. I like sludge a lot. Like I like things that are very slow. I spend a lot of my time listening to Conan and Carnate and Sono.
Oh yeah.
If I had to take a single band on my desert island, it would just be the Melvins back catalog, I guess.
Oh yeah, nice one.
Respect. New Conan album dropped yesterday, I think.
You what?
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
I was
Damn
busy.
you, Apple Music, for not telling me.
Yeah.
That's your first problem.
And then I don't know if I could actually properly spoiler this, but Conan is going on tour by the end of the year.
Yeah, we do know that.
We know that, and that's all we can say.
Yeah, no, I'll for sure see them in London at the very least.
Okay.
Because I try and see them every time they come past. I got in contact with the artist, the illustrator that did like the first few Conan records.
Yes,
and he does some of their shirts as well. I got in contact with him to get some quotes. And actually, now that I'm thinking, I should probably take Rotvolden and call it Abyssal Gods, and I should definitely get back in contact with that guy whose name I've forgotten.
They had a couple shirts where they did like pixel art for their for like a tour or something. They would have pixel art for it, and I was like, oh, these guys are secret nerds. They're not out with it, but
I think if your band's called Conan,
yeah.
Yeah, I have that pixel art shirt. They're like turquoise and pink. Barbarian dude. Yeah, that's sick. What else have I been listening to recently? Like the thing. So I used a No Means No song. I parodied a No Means No song in the Space Gits video. I'm not a huge punk fan. I'm much more into like slow stuff. But No Means No were a huge. I don't know. I wish they were still touring, but they're too old now. Those old men. But like that was really fun. Actually, part of there's I'm going on an emotional journey with Space Gits, people. One of the things about it is that like I realized that because with this because I'm self-publishing this game, because like essentially my whole livelihood depends on it. I'm doing everything that I can. I'm using all the parts of me that I can that are available to pour into this, and I can do whatever the fuck I want because I'm publishing the game. I'm not beholden to anyone, and I'm not beholden to anyone else's opinions. Like, even though I'm working really closely with Tyler on this, like Tyler came in at a point where like I already had like the vision really well fleshed out. So he didn't sort of come in early enough where he's like wanting to feel like he's 50% the sort of creator on it, and no one is. And like I've never had that before because I've always had these like relationships with publishers where, for very good reasons, they are interested and need some amount of input on what's going on with the game and the product and what it's going to come out with. That's why I've never published my game fucking Cultists, which will come out at some point in the future, I'm sure. But with Space Gits and the music video, like I needed a cool, like attention grabbing thing. And I make bad music, have made bad music for, several decades, but I realize now that it's always been comedy music. It's always been goofy comedy music. And so to be able to turn like 25 years of making dumb shit. Like I'm not a talented songwriter, but I can make dumb shit, and I'm happy enough to like be an arse in front of a public. So yeah, like every part of the Space Gits experience is just like super satisfying, like pulling together things about me that have always been true, but I've never been able to stick together. Like the little pamphlet that you've got in front of you. It's just like that's entirely laid out by me. Sort of, I physically tore pieces of card up and then I photographed them and I assembled them in Photoshop, and it's like making people's album artwork is something that I've done for like 20 years. Like this year, actually today as we record, a record just came out by my buddy Mike Woodman, and I did all the like album artwork and the linear and the liner notes and everything, all the interior art. And I love making CD like record art, and so I just wanted to be like, well, if I'm going to do a layout for a book, like, let me just use that. I'll just lean into that, and I'll treat every page like it's the lyric sheet of like a 90s grunge album, and I'll just see where I go.
Yeah, hell yeah. I think it's funny because you said you're pouring everything into Space Gits. we're pretty adamant on having like a no ads vibe for this podcast, and you reached out originally through Tyler, and we were kind of joking about it on the Patreon episode. We're like, man, what if Mike sucks and he has just like awful opinions and he's just like the worst dude we've ever talked to? And it was like, we really try to keep it where it's like we're only hyping up shit that we think is cool and are caring about. And it's like no money has ever changed hands for anything on Hype Scum that we do for like content wise, but I think you are absolutely nailing the vibe. I think everything about this game is truly getting across your chaotic energy and your large brain, putting everything together in here.
But it feels fun too. I mean, like it has like this like sort of SpongeBob kind of feel
100%.
to it, and it's like, and that's so. It's like it's a almost a bright and bubbly kind of game that's about orcs getting drunk, which is so neat.
Just beating the shit out of each other.
This is a total non sequitur, but back in the day, I was probably 17. Like, I used to play quite a bit of Live Vampire, and I used to go to London to play Live Vampire.
Second edition LARP rules, or was it something else?
Yeah, second edition LARP rules. Yeah, the slightly larger format LARP rules. Yeah. And for some reason, I managed to convince the London vampire guys to let me play a changeling, and so that energy of like, I do wear black t-shirts and I do like hanging out with metalheads, but also I want to be wearing a rainbow t-shirt and running up and down like SpongeBob being a goof at the same time. It's fine.
That's cool. That works. I mean, and it makes sense like during this conversation about like what Space Gits is, because it is both of those things.
Yes.
I'm more interested in hearing about playing LARP Vampire in London,
Totally.
man. Yeah, what the hell was that all about back in the day?
Yeah, you ever go to Fang? You ever go to the bar Fang? No? I went there when I was angry. It's pretty cool.
All the LARPs in Boston, not really calling anyone out here, but the group that runs it they do not get the vibe. So I would be interested to hear what London LARP was like.
Well, I was like 16, 17, and you're not allowed to drink or like really hang out in pubs too much at that age. So I'm 16 or 17. I'm out in London by myself. Like I'm with a bunch of like crazy looking, cool people. I'm meeting new people. I'm having these wild conversations. Like for me, it was just like, I don't even remember if I played the game. That was just not the point. It was just like a immersion bath of like weird culture that I just loved every second of. And then I don't know, like I kind of definitely dropped the LARPing, but dropped role playing when I went to university and like took up comedy music instead and drinking. And then like it took maybe 8 or 10 years to get back to gaming after I was married and didn't have to conceal my nerddom anymore.
Yeah, then it just kind of incubated in there. It blooms, after that.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you mentioned that Space Gits is on Kickstarter. Will it still be live?
Yes, there'll be a week left, I believe, when this airs.
Okay, cool. What is it?
Hell yeah!
I don't know if this is like a silly question to ask, but what does it cost to buy Space Gits? What are we talking about here? What am I in for if I go to Space Gits Kickstarter?
The problem is I don't know what it says on your website because my website.
Oh yeah. True.
Pounds. So like, I guess the thing about it is it's an A5 hardback rulebook that I'm putting together myself, and I am gonna sell it during the campaign, and after the campaign you'll be able to buy it as a PDF, but like I don't have dreams of like getting this into retail. Like I'm gonna put it out, you're gonna be able to buy it whilst I'm doing this art run, and then I'll probably come back, hopefully, if the game clicks with people and more people want to buy it, I will probably come back to Kickstarter next year and I'll let people buy the rulebook again. And I have I have a ton of ideas for like an expansion. It's probably gonna be called Here Come the Bastards. Primus reference, but I like have a ton of scenarios and a ton of new faction ideas, and like it's not going to fit in the book, and I want to do something else. So I'll probably let people buy it a couple times. But the problem with miniature agnostic games is that they suck for like retailers, for friendly local gaming stores.
Absolutely,
they don't fit into that model. They don't have a wall of product. They don't have a set of SKUs coming out every week, every month. Like they just don't really work with that model. So I have to I've decided to deliberately kind of just hook into the community in a different way. And if that means that like Space Gits kind of is a little bit difficult to get hold of physically for a while, like, I don't know, like an RPG like Lancer is in this exact space where like it was available for a hot second and then you could only buy the PDF, and that built a load of like sort of FOMO desire to play it. And like if that happens, then that would be great for me as a business, and then I can come back to Kickstarter and kind of help the next 1,000 people or whatever get into the game. Yeah, but that's like a hard choice, because like you imagine, all right, well, I'm setting up by myself, I should probably create a reliable way of getting an income that is happening every month. But I don't know that it's the best way to do it, because then I'd have to spend my whole fucking year shipping parcels rather than prototyping to find the next Space Gits lightning strike.
What your game will have a week left on Kickstarter. Steve, your Kickstarter goes live I think
should be May 6th, but I've been so psychotic about Kickstarter and like what I should do, and like
I think that was going to segue into my question. Mike, do you have any Kickstarter advice or help for our boy Steve, who is frantically texting the chat every day trying to figure out how to do this? Because at this point,
yes,
Flames is done and great, but he's second guessing everything, especially when it comes to launching.
Well, then other people say things, and then like it makes me second guess even more. Like people who have done Kickstarters or people who are more developed, like game designer, quote unquote.
So why don't, like, one thing I'll say is Rule of Carnage podcast recently did like a 6-episode run where the other guy, Glenn, who's run like 7 successful Kickstarters, he basically briefed me for like sort of 2.5 hours across 7 episodes on like all of the things that he's learned about like fulfillment and pledge levels and whether you should have stretch goals and blah 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 blah. So that's a resource that people can get to. But why don't we do like a Mythbusters? Like what is it? What are these like? What are these potential myths that you're carrying around
I like
that
that
are
show.
like freaking you out?
I don't even know. I think it's just the stress of so many things going on at once. Like we got back from Adepticon. Adepticon was a huge thing for us. Like that was like a mountain that we're still not even really done digesting.
No.
Under the Dice Fest is in 19 days.
Yep.
19 days, and I have a board to finish. I have models to paint. I have an entire scenario to write. I just finalized the other scenario because I'm running 2 events there, not counting Mordheim.
Yep.
Like I have so much swirling around that it's like, well, I put up the pre-launch Kickstarter page just to kind of like finally like nail in the coffin, like, all right, this is happening. And I haven't really like verbalized a date that it's dropping, the hard launch of the Kickstarter. And like, some people say you need like 3 months of pre-launch, or you need a month of pre-launch, or
it has to launch on a Tuesday.
Yeah, it has to launch on a Tuesday.
Yeah, so all of that shit I think is bollocks. And the reason I think it's bollocks is that, like, number one, it doesn't fucking matter what day you launch on. Like, it doesn't. But number two, one of the things that people say is you have to have N number of followers before you launch. Like, N might be 1,000. It depends who you listen to. Like, ultimately, when you launch, Kickstarter is going to send an email to a bunch of people that follow you. That's a way of making them aware. That's a way of getting a contact email to them. You've got lots of other ways of getting people aware. So that, like, the followers count that triggers the email is not the only thing that matters to you. And for me, I didn't even give a shit about what that number was. I launched because I wanted to be live during Salute, and I wanted to be finished in time to have something ready for UK Games Expo. So like I was mapping mine to like the convention season so that so that the wider,
and that's kind of what I was doing.
Space. I think that works because that's more sensitive to like what's actually happening in the community rather than this like BS number. So so like number one, like when you launch, you have to get a bunch of people immediately aware of it because like the first 72 hours really matters. And also you have to be super present for that first 72 hours because people are coming in, they've got questions. You don't want a question to go unanswered for like more than 30 minutes, so that's, there's not some weird, like, what are you doing about tariffs hanging in like a shadow over the campaign in like the comment section or whatever. But then it gets real quiet, and I have found quite a lot of psychic space during the Kickstarter running. So during during the middle 3 weeks of the Crawling Chaos Kickstarter that I ran earlier in the year, I'm like 2 weeks into this middle period. I have got quite a lot of psychic space. However, with Space Gits, what I'm doing is I'm trying to think like, I've got a bunch of shit in front of me that I could do, but I'm picking the things that might help promote the game, make people more aware of it. Like, so there's a bunch of like production and future looking stuff that I could do, but I guess depending on what you want to focus on, like, you know, writing backer updates, you know, making videos, getting posts out there, like engaging with folks, like all of that. You want to be in a positive kind of energetic state for that, so that you're not just putting the Kickstarter out and you're like, okay, I'm going somewhere for a month. I'll see it at the end of the Kickstarter. You kind of want to be there, rah-rahing it all the way.
Unfortunately, that's like the problem with the time period that we're facing is May 6th, and then 10 days later is Under the Dice Fest, which, you know, that's in that middle lull period.
Yeah,
where things can be documented and posted and stuff.
And
like
that's
that.
a good it's a great time to get people to like convert, to be like, hey, here's the thing. Now go look at the Kickstarter.
True.
Like, I get it.
Yeah,
it's definitely a cool beat to be live during.
Do you still get how many? This is your first Kickstarter or?
This is number 2.
Right. So, what was the first game that you got signed or published through Osprey or anything else?
Yeah, the first game that came out for reals was the Blue Book Gaslands through Osprey.
Yep. Were you in this manic mindset that Steve is in right now, or was it
because Osprey was doing it to kind of take a lot of that weight off you?
So when the Blue Book for Osprey was released, it was basically the same weekend that my first daughter was born.
Oh my god!
So I was insane. And no, actually, she'd been born a little bit before, because like when the manuscripts got submitted, I was in. Yeah, let me get the timeline straight. It's real tricky because that's a dark period where, you know, amnesia. So I was working on the final manuscript, and Emily was born, and I submitted a manuscript that was final copy edited by an insane zombie, and so there are some problems with that initial printing that were like Death Race didn't have a last man standing rule. I just cut it for some reason in a fever dream.
Oh my god.
So like, if everyone died, technically in first edition Gaslands, you're still playing that Death Race game. It never ended. And then I went to Salute to like advertise the game, and was basically falling asleep at the booth in between like manic blasts of like running around handing out Gaslands flyers. But after that, like when the game actually got published, I decided I would get a load of templates and printed, and I like created this crummy little store using eBay and like sold a bunch of like templates and tokens and ran a mail order shop out of my house. But I didn't have anything like the same kind of intense panic, because I didn't have to make sure the book existed or like arrived from the printers or anything. And also I had no idea what to expect. I was just like, oh, well, it's just a book. It'll come out. Like, I'll walk down to the shops and there'll be a book there. But actually what I was much more excited about was all the community building and like making sure I had a forum on my website, and because it was still 2017.
Yeah.
And there was a Facebook group and stuff like that. So I think, I don't know, the way that you're feeling feels natural, and is kind of how I was worried about feeling going into Space Gits. But in the end, like, there was so much interesting creative work to do, like creating the page, creating the video, creating the, like, you know, making the video meant I had to paint a load of miniatures, and I had to like make do a load of video editing and stuff. And I just lent into the creative work, and it was like the most creative 6 weeks of my life leading up to the Space Gits thing. So I just kind of focused on the good stuff and tried not to worry about whether it succeeded or not.
That's probably a very good way to go about it. I should probably not care. I should probably push all of my doubts and fears out of my head and just do it.
And just start writing. Right, start writing the expansion.
I already have. I've been doing that. I've been doing that.
Finish it up, dude.
Months.
Finish it up.
But that's the cool thing is, like, I'm sure you get this all the time, where people are excited about your game and they want to include their ideas into your little world, and they make like a little zine, or they make their own like little charts or their tables or rules just to add on to your stuff.
I love it. Yes. Yeah. And one of the first things that happened was that because I made this ridiculous decision of making like an Osprey Blue Book that had templates that you needed, a bunch of people initially like wanted to laser cut stuff, and I chatted to Osprey, having a friend from the Malifaux tournament scene who I was chatting to on Twitter. Like he came up with this idea of like, why don't you just start a Patreon and like let people kind of officially but not officially make templates? And I chatted to Osprey, and that's how the Friends of Gaslands thing started. And it was such a huge benefit to me and the game, because it meant that like enthusiastic indie makers that just like wanted to use their like skills or tools or whatever to make something for the game could just do it without any fear, because there was like a special, it wasn't official, but it's just like it's a we're cool sort of handshake situation. And so I think that like that energy I've tried to create again and again in any way that I can around my games, because I don't want them to be like little closed protected ecosystems. I want you to feel like you can hack them and stuff. And with Space Gits, like during the campaign, I sent Gage it the other day, like I've open sourced the core engine of Space Gits through Creative Commons, so like anyone can take these dumbass dexterity mechanics and start making games that use or hack those rules, and you don't have to ask my permission. That's just like, that's out there in the wild now. I'm really like, this is kind of dumb, but I'm really inspired by John Carmack at id, like the guy behind Doom. So he's like from the hacker culture of like video games in the 90s, but like his opinion, and this is going to sound a little bit arrogant, but that's fine. I am a little bit arrogant. That's just who I am. He was like, I'm writing these cool 3D engines, and every time we write a game, I'm going to open source the engine and I'll start to work on the next one. It doesn't matter that other people can make money out of the like 3D engine, because when we come out with our new game, we'll have the next engine, and that'll be amazing. So everyone else gets to have a cool time. Everyone else gamers get more games to play. It doesn't really impact our business as id, because like we'll have the Quake engine next or whatever. And that's kind of how I feel with like Space Gits is super unique and doesn't look like anything, but I would like there to be more things that do play as stupid as Space Gits. So I'm open sourcing the system so that other people can do dumbass things, and people have already started coming up with like Drunken Cowboys and different kinds of games are springing out already.
Drunken Space Hulk. Like you're bumping into all the walls.
Terminator's wasted in Space Hulk.
Wait. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
there's a fuel leak, and like the high fumes. And so like I don't know, like will it affect whether or not Space Gits sells like more copies? I don't know. It'll probably work as a marketing trick, hopefully. But the point is, like, I'll come up with something else in 2 years' time, and there'll be another thing that I'll be excited about sharing. So I'm not worried about that. So I'm extremely excited about people hacking my games. I'm extremely excited about people building on top of them. Like that's what makes this not unique. Like tabletop miniatures not unique in this way. Like I super also love the like modding scene for video games for similar reasons, but I just love this idea that like we have to play physically, we have to play together in social groups, and so we like get into this space where, because it's all paper rules, like we don't have to have complicated technical skills to mod these games. We can just do what the hell we want with them. And I would like I have done what the hell I want with every miniature game I've ever done, and I would never begrudge anyone messing with any of my games, other than to say, if you do change a core mechanic, at least play the basic game once, just in case I had a reason for that mechanic.
Yeah. Are you an old FPS head? You old Half-Life Quake days, or
Nah, not really. At university, I kind of stopped. Like my video game career ended. The first era ended with like basically the N64, and then I played like Skyrim for about 2 years, and then Fallout 3, and then disappeared again, and then I ended up like working for a video game company. I was like, oh, I should probably learn about video games again. So like my video game journey has been very peaky.
Right. Your point about things being open source and creative, the modding scene is very heavy with that. But I mean, we have the same mindset. Terry's always said it, where it's like everything we do, steal it, do it your own, do whatever, because it's not. Mm-hmm. It's never really going to reflect, especially on things we do with like conventions or like the Brothers of Promethean packet or anything. It's not going to take from what we did or what we have.
The stamp is already there.
It's already there, and people are going to know. If they're in the scene, they're going to know where it was inspired from anyway, or whatever. But yeah, I think that's a great mindset to have, because I mean, look, just us shooting the shit. I'm really hyped on Drunken Terminators right now.
I'm going to go 3D print the whole Space Hulk set now.
And you had mentioned it as like a marketing trick, but it's like it's more than that. I think opening yourself up to allowing people to do what they want It like literally will open people's minds. You know, it will make them realize that what you're doing is not exclusive to like some, you know, brilliant mad scientist that only he can do this stuff. It's like, no. I can take this and I can use this as a jumping off point for not just a game that uses those rules, but my own ideas that I have, which is super important.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like, I don't want to be standing in the middle, like on a pedestal, like broadcasting a product line, because like it doesn't really work for the kind of shit that I want to make. I want to be like, it's my buddy Sean Sutter, you know, he always says, because he learned it at art school, like art is a conversation. Like that's how we keep this conversation moving, as we keep things open and free and celebrate each other, like picking up the ball when we made something, somebody else picks it up, and then that inspires us and we go around in circles, and that's sweet.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Keeps it going.
Can I ask you guys some questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand that you like Mordheim.
It's okay.
Do you guys play that? How much do you like Mordheim as a game system? And have you tried other things in alternative to it? And how did those work out?
Mordheim is very whatever as a game system. I love the after action way more than actually playing the game. I would play one-page rule fantasy skirmish and then just use the after action table if I could.
That actually sounds really good.
Maybe we should do that.
It actually sounds really good. I like that idea.
Personally, I think Mordheim is antiquated, and I think us running the largest Mordheim event in the world is more because Mordheim, and we've said it multiple times, but Mordheim is like an aesthetic term at this point, and not even really the game itself.
Instantly conveys a feeling.
Right. It's the vibe we were talking about, and it gets it across to those people, and they come to our event. But to me, Mordheim is such an aside to what we're doing. It's not our regular play. I'll say
but it does summarize so much of the hobby that we like the creative aspect of like scratch building terrain and like customizing models, and that it really encapsulates
the baked in narrative play.
Yeah.
And so, have you guys played other skirmish games that feel like they scratch the same itch? Like, obviously, nothing can fire Mordheim because of its centrality, like culturally. But like, are there games that you kind of are much more like you're using those Mordheim models and you're much more excited to pick up and play?
Gage has got one.
I got one.
Necropolis, yeah.
Yeah. To me, the community aside, the community of Necropolis is insane, and I will travel to the UK for it as many times as Peter will run an event. But to me, that scratches the surface because it's a smaller, faster, more baked-in narrative experience to me.
Yeah, the lore is central in that game. Like when you're building your warband, it's 90% of why you're building your warband.
Yeah.
And I think that the tagline for that was so inspired, like the diorama nature of the small board that you play on, being so good. Like it's so evocative of like, oh, okay, so what I've got to do is make something sick as fuck to play on, and it will be like textured and horrible to move miniatures on, but we're gonna just play it on that because that's going to look amazing, and I want to make something incredible looking.
Right.
I really liked that as a sort of vibe evocation or a tagline to get you looking again.
It's got to be the title of the episode. Vibes with Mike.
That's
all we're talking about. It's just vibes.
I would say we haven't played it in a while, but I loved the Middle-earth strategy battle game Battle Companies.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like Mordheim, and we're not using Mordheim models for it, but it's so cinematic that every time we played a game, it's like I remember all of those games because they felt like little movies happening.
I'm back in Middle-earth. It's literally like, oh, I'm reliving the movies for the first time when I play this game.
Playing Rohirrim and seeing Paul's Warg Riders riding up, over the green hills while I'm firing arrows from like strategic points on the map. In all of those games, me fighting your goblins on the tower where it's like we're pushing each other off and bashing each other with our shields
on
and
the
shit.
board
It was
where
awesome.
Steve said no one has ever played in this spot of the board. And I'm
where
like,
everybody's in there.
and I'm
one
like,
spot.
this is the most cinematic spot for Terry and I's games.
no one
so
plays
cool.
like more time doesn't happen in there.
Yeah.
It definitely does.
I remember trying to jump when we played that game of Lord of the Rings. I tried jumping from like the church to the middle building, and my guy just fell and
died.
That's so cool.
Yeah, good game.
Great game.
I think my take would be Last War.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because of the campaign and like there's how much all around it that we were all doing. Like everyone made a war band.
Yeah.
Everyone made boards. Like
That's also a game, though, that during character creation for your warband, it's telling you, like, these guys suck. This is what he's going to get the one cool thing, and then this
Yeah.
is how, like, it's building the world while you're making that warband.
Yeah.
But that could just be because
Yeah,
we did a whole thing tied to it, like a whole narrative day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played Battle Companies, but I did play. I picked up Middle Earth strategy battle game last year with my like 40k dad friend, and it was kind of a mistake because I should have introduced him to Relic Blade second because he only played 40k and only for like a year, and I was like, oh, we should play this other game because it's a bit more lighter and skirmish, but like the rule book's super thick and it's actually kind of complicated. We should have just played Relic Blade or something. But we played it straight out of the rule book, and it kind of, I think they've just released a new edition, so we were playing whatever the previous edition was 2 years ago. But the game kind of assumed it was a battle game, and it kind of sucked as a battle game, and so then we got like the narrative scenarios out of the whatever army books, and those were immediately much better. Like I had a bunch of spiders, he had a bunch of wood elves, and like that was way cooler, and like I can see like what this game was built for, and it doesn't strike me as like... the best option for playing mass battle games.
No, yeah.
So yeah, I want to try Battle Companies.
Oh,
so did you play a campaign of Battle Companies then?
No, but we've talked about it. We were just playing a bunch of...
we were playing campaign-wise in terms of tracking our warband's progress and getting gold to...
Oh, okay.
I was able to unlock a troll, and then we never played ever again.
I unlocked a dead guy on a horse, and everyone complained too much about my army.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that Steve ruined our gaming experience. I'm thinking now about...
Steve, play this game with us. Oh, okay, I only need 4 models. Cool.
The
Ghosts
ghosts
the
look
best
cool.
army in the game, coincidentally.
And then nobody wanted to play with Steve because he was too good. But I really like that. I want to go back at some point, and we talk about all these different kind of seasons that we've been thinking about doing little campaigns with, friends, our local group. And I would love to go back and do just like a 3-month campaign of playing Battle Company.
I got those orcs.
I know.
I bought them at Adepticon.
We're definitely ready for it. There's no doubt.
One super underrated game, I reckon, is Andy Chambers and Gav Thorpe wrote this system that's been used multiple times for like Warlords, like 2000 AD games. I have somewhere up there. I've got the Strontium Dog one, but like it's the Judge Red one and the ABC Warriors one, which I think are out at the moment. But like they've got this central system that's repeated for all of them, except that like what they did is for each of the different games, they let themselves create a different campaign system. So one's got like a kind of territories Necromunda type campaign system. One's got more like a branching narrative campaign system, blah, blah, blah. They got this same central mechanics with like pulling tokens out of a bag to do initiative. But like all of them, you get like the characters that you can play from the comics, but like each of them, it's like at its heart, it's got like a kind of character building system where it's like super miniature agnostic, even though they sell metal miniatures of all the guys in the...
Right.
Like Strontium Dog is a really good rogue trader system. It's just like, I think it's underappreciated as like a general purpose, like weird sci-fi thing, because it's got loads of cinematic and gunfighty sort of Old West shit built into it. And it has these decks of cards with all this like crazy equipment so that like, I don't know, it's got loads of narrative flavor baked into it. I think it's super because Warlord's mostly known for their like, their bigger historical games. And I think this
totally
right
for a certain portion of the community, I think this particular games has slipped under the radar, but we played a couple games recently and they were really good.
Well, great. Now we have to do something else. Gage just brought up the cover of the game and it looks awesome. God damn it.
I got another question for you. Do you guys like, when you play campaign, have you played a map campaign? And if you have, like, do you have a go-to system that you always use, or you just make things up each time you come to a campaign?
we've done 2 map campaigns. One for Mordheim, when we did a one-day
I forgot
map
about that.
in Paul's basement.
Yep.
Where we... I went into the print shop and had like a 8 foot by 4 foot blow up of the Mordheim map rules so we could hang it on the wall.
Oh,
And it was so good in like theory that like, oh, we'll do this like every other week or once a month, and then we just never did, and now it sits folded on a shelf in the studio.
Yeah.
But
It's
like,
in the studio though. We'll hang it up.
yeah, but it was so awesome. Like,
you should just decoupage it to the wall.
Right?
Yeah.
we'll probably do that today.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
And then I just recently ran a map campaign for one-page rules regiments, like the rank and file game they have. It was just like our local crew just playing very loosely, but it was a map. Like as you won games, you would unlock territories, and it really didn't matter. It was just for your standing in the campaign, like how far ahead you are.
It didn't really influence like who could battle who.
No, I wanted to do it that way, but really to do that, it takes like so much effort from the players.
We did last war day, and I was so confident. I had a hex base, almost like a hex crawl. It was like 30 hexes, and I was like, okay, all these players are going to be their different war bands all over, and I was very confident in all the rules. And then the second a player got knocked off the map, it broke everything that I had prepared because I didn't know how to get them back on the map fairly, or how they could play, or how they could get a bonus when they're going up against someone that had a territory bonus. And
it just has to be unfair.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it's for our local crew. It's this push-pull of what is fair and what is like an uphill battle and what can still be fun as an uphill battle. And I've hacked Mighty Empires a couple times, and we haven't played it and tested it yet, but I don't think that's the answer, honestly speaking. As much as I want it to work, I love the idea of being like, oh, Terry attacked Steve's supply line.
I have 200 less points now.
Yeah, because they couldn't eat and 200 guys died, or it's like, I don't know.
I think it and we haven't done it enough, but like that Tyrannid thing I just showed you, where like both of you are kind of on a back foot in one way or another.
Yeah.
And like if you go in with the mindset of like, this is a losing battle and I know I'm going to probably lose, I think as long as you go in thematically with that mindset,
Yes.
it's fine.
Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
going to have fun with it. Like it's going to paint a picture for you.
Right.
We'll
Or
have
like,
fun with it.
yes.
But not everybody will.
But well, that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
you go into the game, if you know that that is a fun idea,
Yes.
it will be a fun game. But if
Yes.
you're going in to play a war game that it's like, well, this has to be fair,
Yeah.
you're not going to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like for a certain, like I'm always looking for like where the like outside of the fantasy rewards are like locking in with the inner fantasy. Like as you're saying that, I'm feeling like I want, like it's awesome in a movie to have the like heroes be beaten like really on the edge of almost losing. Like that's how you make a cool story, and then maybe they'll come back from it, but you don't know for sure. And so it almost feels like in that situation where you're like super down on points and there's no way that you're really going to win this, but do you know what, like if you just achieve X, then you get like an achievement which is just like, you know, absolutely, you know, you get the pit of despair achievement or whatever for like just eking out like a not completely total loss, but like you're definitely going to lose, but there's some like,
Right. Like an
there's
alternative
some
win
mechanic.
condition.
Keep your hero
Yeah, or
alive
like
until the last round.
And it doesn't even have to be a win condition necessarily. It's just a Pyrrhic victory condition,
Yes,
or like a
yeah,
something else
yeah.
that you can pick up. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, campaign rules.
Yeah, map campaign-
It's rough.
It's tough because like they're so appealing and seductive, and then it's actually like so logistically hard to execute on.
Well, you guys more so than me. I was looking at it way after the fact, but Border Princes, you were saying it has to be run like in a one-day thing where everyone is together, or it will not work.
Border Princes is truly like peak map campaign. Like it looks so cool and fun to do, but everyone has to be there. You have to have a big room with multiple tables. Like everyone has to be present for every move on the map. And like that's awesome, but like how often does everyone have 6 hours so we can play like 2 to 3 games and do the map mechanics?
Right. With a large group of people.
And that's why a lot of those map campaigns, it has to be like, oh, it's your 4 friends. It's not meant for a lot of people. This is meant for your tiny play group to do at your house.
Right.
or 2 people.
I don't know that one. Is that an officially published thing or a fan made thing?
That's in General's Compendium for
6th.
I believe it's 6th edition.
Warhammer Fantasy.
Cool.
It's awesome. I can send you the PDF if you want to look at it. It is truly a
100%.
great set of rules.
Yeah, I think that's like because our gaming scene is so ingrained, and I mean, like our studio is in Connecticut, so we luckily can pull from Boston area, New York City area. We have a pretty healthy group that we've kind of cultivated. It's so important to have these like maybe not important, but it's so integral to our scene to have these like narrative days or these like campaigns that are ongoing. Like we're launching Terry's 40K campaign right now, and it keeps the group in line and playing and hanging out. But the map campaign, like you said, the allure is just so there, where everyone wants to be a warlord and say, "Look how much I've conquered over the friend circle."
Yes.
Because it's cool.
I'm the winner.
Yeah, it's cool, but it's tough.
Because sometimes it feels bad.
Yes.
And I'm trying right now with the 40K map, because I wasn't going to do a map, and then Gage was like, it'd be cool to do like some of your collage stuff for the map. And I was like, no, that seems like a lot of work. And then, of course, you start thinking about it. You go, no, I could probably figure this out. And so I'm just going to have this big old black piece of paper, and I'm going to splatter some stars on it. And it's all going to be handmade, but it's going to have everybody's name, you know, on a little piece of paper. And I'm going to put planets around them. So at least hopefully it like sparks your brain when you look at the map and you see like, oh, Steve, who's been kicking ass and he's got like a ton of wins under his belt. And we are using this kind of spreadsheet too, where you can see that Steve has been winning and he's in the top leaderboard. And then you look at the map and it's just his name surrounded by moons and planets and stuff. And then hopefully that visual will be interesting enough where you can see who the clear winner is or who's winning at this moment. But then the planets will kind of shift as the wins.
I was going to say, are you going to like move them to people?
Yeah, so like they'll sort of move, not based on games, which would be really neat. That's like a whole nother kind of, coordination thing, but just kind of like shifting them around. Like, let's say you have, overall, you have 8 points. I think we were saying planets count as 2 wins and a moon counts as like a 1 kind of hang around or win. So if you had 8 points or whatever, you would just have like 4 big planets around you. I don't know. We'll see how it works, but I think that like visually it'll look really cool.
And I think making it not a map also takes away some of the feel bad. Like, because a map can make you feel like, why am I bothering? But if it's a ambiguous, like, oh, this is space, and you just have a couple planets around you, that it's like, oh, cool, I got some planets. Yeah. I got some planets under my belt.
There's a fun idea. I think it's in Ash Wastes, maybe the big Ash Waste rulebook, where there's like they use a hex map, but it's about the lines between locations. You don't own the hexes, you own like roads, like in Settlers of Catan or something.
Yeah.
And then you can get like the longest sort of connected set of, and then you can battle over like, and then so like that can be like, well, that's a road, so we're going to battle on a like cool road thing, or that's a city, so we'll battle in an urban thing, or that's a like ravine, so we'll battle in a ravine. But just so like a nice inversion of it.
I can feel the gears crunching in Terry's brain. I look over.
Man, is that a cool idea? Just to even think about a game combining it with Settlers of Catan and being like, okay, we're like kind of playing both games.
I got the wheat.
I mean, honestly, dude, like if you were to combine those two things and be like, okay, now there's a trade component where you're actively trading between players, but there's also a gaming component and a road building component, and the map system becomes a mini
another game. That's Nate Dungeon's like whole like the getting people to trade resources through their games and stuff like that.
But then there's like a game board that's just like you're using a literal Settlers of Catan.
We could just get Settlers of Catan board and just make that
right
campaign
and use all of those. Use that actual system for how players interact with each other.
Yeah. Oh, like I know you listen to the podcast, but like this is how 90% of the ideas that we come up with happen.
I'm here for it. It makes me think of like both Frostgrave and the Doomed have like this sort of PvPvE mechanic where 2 warbands turn up. They're not actually told to fight, but people will tend to fight just because that's what happens. But actually there's a third element, which is, you know, the environment or the treasure or the monster or whatever. And it sort of feels like if you were going to combine a map campaign or like a war game campaign with a Settlers of Catan thing, like make everyone sort of unsteady allies, and you have to solve the problem, which is the goblins keep coming out everywhere, or it's like Dragon Town or something. But like stuff starts to erode because actually you stole my wheat, and that one sheep wasn't enough.
But I also need bricks, god damn it. So I need to be your freaking friend. So let's fight these goblins so I can get this until I get the bricks I need. Then I'm bashing your head in.
It might be cool to do it if you want to go that route, being like, here's the mission you play for the first 2 weeks, and there's like an NPC monster mechanic behind it.
Will that be like Doomed or something, doing something like that, tying that in?
I really like the Doomed. I think we should try it. I just, like I've said multiple times, I want to tweak the damage system a little bit.
You said the movement was really fun.
When I originally read it, where it was like, oh, you move as far as you can in a straight line, I was like, this is game breaking. This is gonna suck so bad. But we have such bespoke boards in like in our
it actually makes the game better.
Studio. Yeah, I was like, oh, this actually rocks, because it's like Gears of War or something, where they're like running to the thing and they're immediately ducking. It instantly got that visual across, and I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, I'm super curious about measureless movement, because it's appeared here and there, but like the Doomed was the first kind of proper published game to have it in, although Osprey followed up immediately with Freaks, which also has measureless movement in it. And I think it's an underexplored, exciting area for mechanics. The Doomed does it sort of, I think, has maybe the simplest implementation that I've seen, which is to its credit to a degree, but I think there's some problems that like some friends that play together will just wave past, but it makes it really hard to play a pickup game of the Doomed because it just doesn't really have a central engine that actually functions without player consent. But just to bring it back to my games, because I'm a narcissist, one of the things I'm finding fun about the random movement, like physical placement of dice in Space Gits, is that it sort of solves a similar problem, which is that measureless movement sort of says, well, let's not be finicky about, let's not spend a bunch of time measuring things and worrying about whether I could go here or there and whether I've got enough inches to get around this corner and all that kind of stuff that we accept, but honestly, no one super loves that part of wargaming unless it's part of a really interesting tactical puzzle. I used to play Malifaux competitively, and the way that scheme markers and models and auras and shit interacts in Malifaux, you really care about exactly where the geometry of shit is. But most of the time you don't care, and measureless movement is kind of a way of just going hey, how about we don't care and we just move models to places that look cool in as simple way as we can. And Space Gits kind of says the same thing, which is how about we don't finnick around with movement and we just roll the dice and we move straight towards it. And to be honest with you, Gaslands is kind of the same thing. It's how about we don't spend ages figuring out how turning arcs work, and instead you just pick one of these shapes and put it down. So I think they're all reaching for that same question, which is how do we just not futz about having tedious measuring times with movement?
Right. Yeah, and I mean
I have played the Doomed. I really like the sort of endless stream of monsters idea, and the fact that they have nexuses that you have to destroy, and it's cool.
I completely forgot what I was going to say. The core mechanic of the Doomed, where it's like you said, it's two warbands showing up to do a task, but it's just going to evolve into them fighting while also fighting a thing. I feel like that is an underexplored, a PvE element in most games is super underexplored, where it can be a narrative tool in these games or these missions where we were doing in the Brothers Prometheum thing, where it was through the podcast we've established the lore of the four hosts war bands, and we're just going to go up to different tables and just put a model down, and we're going to completely fuck up what your personal narrative is happening in this game, and now we're going to do it. I think there needs to be way more of that in games.
Yeah, and it's hard because it would have worked fine in the time of the GM. And so now we have to write kind of nice watertight AI systems for it, which is not inconceivable. It's just kind of tricky. But there are some games doing it. Obviously, Frostgrave has a lot of wandering monsters, and the Elder Scrolls Call to Arm games has quite a lot of nice stuff around that.
Is that game cool?
I think it's really nicely designed. I don't dig the miniatures particularly, but like everybody gets their own like secret quests, and you like have to complete your quests over a couple of different games, and I think that's really cozy. But like under the hood, it's just like completely functional skirmish game. Like it's good.
Yeah.
But like it will bring a vibe if you're super into Elder Scrolls or Skyrim or whatever.
The Oblivion remake had me scratching my head, being like, maybe I should check out the miniatures for it. But
it also has a delve. It has a delve mode, so it has like a whole co-op dungeon crawling, or maybe it's solo.
That's awesome.
All right, now I'm interested.
So they did a lot. Yeah, they did a lot with that rule system. It's actually like if it wasn't for tariffs, like my dream was to make. So this is the Elder Scrolls Call to Arms like core rules box. It's a box that has a rule book and a bunch of dice and tokens and cards and stuff. Like there's a world where Planet Smasher games, like what I make is these beautiful boxes that have like an entire miniature agnostic game with all the like. Imagine Gaslands in a box like this with all the bits and like it would be so sick. I'm working my way up to that, but like I was, literally starting to put together the spec for like, okay, Mike's like next game after Space Gits will look like this, and then like shit kicks off in your country.
Sorry about that.
Now,
whatever.
I have a Kickstarter question. How are you handling the tariffs and all that BS?
I put in 3 separate places a public message that says, I don't know what's going to happen with the tariffs, and if they end up being a problem for you, then I'm offering a no quibble refund guarantee to all US backers.
Cool.
That's beautiful.
Wow, that's very nice too.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to pay the tax?
What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
We don't know. Like, it could be $5, it could be $50. Like, it just doesn't. We don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's no point. If there are people who are nervous about the tariffs and don't back, like that's just the cost of business right now. Like I can't do anything about that.
Right.
So all I can do is be as generous as I can to give people confidence to back.
And up front.
Maybe it comes to nothing, and maybe I end up having to give back a third of the Kickstarter revenues because everyone needs a refund. But whatever.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to keep you here all
what it
day. I'm sure you have better things to do than just chat with our freaking dumbasses. But before we let you go,
I would hang out here. I would hang out here all day long.
You're the best. Before we cut you loose, is there anything you want to say about yourself? Any plugs besides, of course, Space Gits that you want to make? Any place we can go to see more of your work?
I have a YouTube channel called Planet Smasher Games. And that is where I broadcast every couple of weeks, like what I'm working on, whether it's just like me chatting shit or me working through a specific design. So I guess go follow me on YouTube. You'll find out the most from there. I do have an Instagram. I just discovered this thing called Instagram. I cast Resurrection on my 2012 profile because Goobertown was good enough to do a beautiful post for his little Space Gits crew.
Not me.
That's you.
Actual Goobertown.
Oh, I thought he was making fun of you.
No. No.
Yeah, so that kind of resurrected my Instagram account. So you can follow me there, but YouTube is the place that I feel most at home on in terms of the fact that I can bounce up and down shouting at you.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the pod. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Well, thanks for moving all of your shit and rewiring all of your
No. Listen,
accommodate.
This takes 20 minutes.
This podcast, we could stem all the way back to a couple of things, but Terry pushing Gaslands into this friend circle is why we are here today. So thank you.
Oh man.
Yeah,
I've been playing it for years.
It's still great. I mean, we're talking about it on the Patreon episode, and it's just like, oh, we want to play again. We're re-hyped on it again. Let's play it again because it's such a good game.
I mean, years ago, Neff was pushing that game on our competitive 40K crew.
Yeah,
it was that was something we were playing as for fun on the side.
Right.
It blows my mind because I was there when Gaslands came out, and it still feels like it was yesterday because I'm still here being me. But the idea that people really came together around that game in the land before time, it doesn't really make me feel old so much as I don't know, it just makes me feel really happy.
Yeah, as it should.
A bit old.
All right, keep on keeping on, man. Keep on making great games.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Love you, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Hive Scum. If you aren't already part of the community, check us out at the In Rust We Trust Discord, which you can find down in the description below. If you have questions you'd like to ask us, you can find our Instagrams down below as well. Or feel free to ask away on the Discord. We also have plenty of extra content and other perks available to our patrons on Patreon. So if you're interested in helping us keep doing what we're doing, then you can find that description below as well. Until next time, folks, keep it grimdark and keep it grimy. Peace.